Everybody, Wade Northhausen here from Bilbo Battalion, coming to you live today from downtown Cayuga in north central Victoria, Australia. Today is Thursday the 12th of September 2024, and we're doing this live because we attended the National Farmers Rally that was held in Canberra last Tuesday, the 10th of September 2024, and we thought we'd do an assessment and a wrap up of that, given how serious things are in agriculture at the minute. We've got people all over the countryside are protesting about everything from transmission lines to solar panels to wind turbines to bans that are being put on sheep being exported and a whole host of other things. So we thought we'd go to the rally in Canberra and have a bit of a look and just see what happened, what was proposed, what people got from it, why people went there, you know, what their issues are, and most importantly, what they saw as a result, what sort of confidence that they came away with. So it had as a big component a convoy that was to come across from Western Australia and take part in a convoy around Parliament House and a convoy into Canberra. So you know, we actually spoke to some of the farmers who brought their trucks across from Western Australia. And some of the other local truckies and farmers who brought their trucks from, you know, around the more local area within a few hundred k's or 500 k's. And I really want to do a big shout out first of all to Morris, who was actually one of the Freedom. He has what we know as the Freedom truck, and he took part in that convoy. And Morris's semi is it's a furniture removalist semi. He travels all over Australia, and it's all completely done up with posters, with placards, with billboards about everything that's happening, the big picture stuff. And we wanted to have a big shout out to Morris from Kingaroy in Queensland, because Morris at the minute's laid up in hospital. He's not doing too good. He's had something he's had to go and get seen to in hospital there. So, you know, we just wanted to say to Morris that we wanted a big shout out and hope you get well soon, mate. And I'll be on the phone. I'll give you a yell this afternoon and just get an update on how things are going. So, as I said, big shout out to Morris. And Morris took part in the convoy, and you know, there was 3 trucks there that came all the way from Western Australia. And I know one of them was from down near Albany, down the southwest coast of WA. So this is a big trip. They went a long way. So, you know, we really hope that they were to get value out of this particular, you know, quite a very big effort. And, you know, we have to look at how this all started and what it was about. And originally it started off as a campaign, you know, by farmers against the banning of the live sheep export out of Western Australia. So we were over, Bilbo Battalion was over in Western Australia earlier on this year, and you know, we talked to a lot of producers, a lot of farmers in WA. We presented at quite a number of locations, and we went there. You know, people asked us to come over and present, so Bilbo Battalion went across and we did that. And the banning of the live sheep trade was very, very big. It was a hot topic, and we got involved with a number of the people who saw the Liberal Party over there trying to turn this into something that it's not. We saw the Liberal Party, and as I say with all my videos, these that you're going to hear today in this live, these are my opinions, and you're free to make your own choice. You're free to look at what I say and look up things and reference points and so on and investigate. But what I started to see and recognise, and I've seen this many times, is the Liberal Party, the coalition, started to turn this into something where it's Liberal, national and country people versus the Labor Party and the Greens. So, and as I always say, we need to understand the four major parties are all the same thing. They work for the same people, and that's not us. But anyway, what we started to see was this was becoming very politicised by operators who are very, very clever at using and abusing farmers for their political mileage that they can get out of it. And we're seeing, there's going to be an election next year, a federal election. So this is what this is about, is a group of farmers who started off protesting about their livelihoods being destroyed, and then the coalition looking at that going, aha, here's a perfect opportunity to use and abuse hard-working, decent Australian farmers for political points. That's all this is. That's what it's turned into be, what it's turned out to be. And we've seen this many, many times before. So the first thing that I would say is to remember that the policies that are causing these sheep to be banned are international policies. They're policies that have been set up by some very, very serious criminals, and the four major parties in Australia are all signed up to those policies. So you are not going to get one side of politics here in Australia will actually fight for you, because this is what's happened. So we've seen the Western Australian farmers, as in the organisation, come on board, and we've seen the National Farmers Federation all of a sudden get involved. And what that means is that the National Farmers Federation has set up these farmers here to be used as a political grandstand for the coalition going into the next election. That is all that is. And I constantly talk about the National Farmers Federation, and like the president, David Johinke, who I've known David for quite a fair while. He took over from Fiona Simpson. Didn't know her, but David is a really nice bloke, a hell of a nice bloke, and I like him a lot, other than the fact that when we need him to stand up and fight for our farmers, he doesn't. That's the whole problem. Yeah, and I must say that at the rally on Tuesday, we saw David stand up on stage and tell everybody how he knows how to fight. Well, I'm sorry, David. No, mate, we don't see that. We don't see that at all. And, this is one of our big major problems, that along with the National Farmers Federation, along with the other, state farmer organisations, and a big shout out here to Tony Seabrook from Western Australia, he's the president of the West Australian Pastoralists and Graziers Association, who I've spoken to a number of times over the last 12 months or so. And, I've said to Tony a number of things, and Tony just doesn't get on board, mate. No. I talked to him about the destruction of the red meat industry, and Tony was very much, pull up, they wouldn't do that. I'm thinking, yes they would. These are the part of the policies, mate, and it's about time that you lot got up to speed, get with the program, and stop living in the Stone Ages. Exactly the same as the Western Australian Farmers Organisation, New South Wales Farmers, Victorian Farmers Federation. You need to get with the program. And I think that, a reasonable question to ask is, what are these leaders of all these groups and organisations truly about? Because what we do see is that many of the leaders of these organisations, number one, they pull a fairly substantial wage for doing this. Number two, they get to take a lot of selfies and a lot of photo ops with all the politicians and the people, and get in the media and make out their celebrities for a day, or celebrities for their term, and the politicians come along and they lead them around by the nose, and they think they're just great. Well, that's not what it's about. And the other thing, of course, is that they spend a lot of time getting flown around the countryside, travelling around the countryside, going to all these junkets, if you like. It's all very great. It looks great on a resume, on a CV, and you get to rub shoulders of all the knobs and make out you're important and so on. Well, that's all great for you, but what about the members? What about the farmers? What about the people who you are supposed to represent? And this is why we're doing this video, because for many years I've been seeing this happen time and time again, where our farmers are sold out. Now, you wanted to talk about the National Farmers Federation, and I'll speak to this for just a second. I remember, and I'm drawing this from memory, so it's as best as I can come up with the things I'm going to say. I remember there was a meeting put on in Shepparton in north central Victoria around about 2017 or so, and I was at that, and I met with some of the people there, were the National Farmers Federation. Now, Tony Marr, and David Johinke mentioned Tony Marr in glowing terms on Tuesday. Now, Tony Marr, if what I'm saying, remembering what David said is correct, is the CEO of the National Farmers Federation. And in 2017, as a member of the VFF, I was fighting very hard against the Murray-Darling Basin Plan for our farmers, for our irrigators. And I said to Tony Marr I wanted to meet with the board of the National Farmers Federation. And Tony Marr said to me, as I said, I'm working on memory here, basically that if you wanted to talk about the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, then the National Farmers Federation would refuse to speak to me. What? Are you serious? The Murray-Darling Basin Plan was one of the biggest things that was going on at the time. It was going to annihilate so many irrigation farmers, communities, businesses, industry, food production, the whole lot. And Tony Marr from the National Farmers Federation said, if you want to talk about that, we won't speak to you. So that pretty well tells you the whole problem. So I put it to the National Farmers Federation, what are you actually there for? Really? What is your role? What is your job? Because as far as I can see at the minute, it's a setup where the executive or the board or whatever it is, the members at the top level get paid a fair bit of money. They get a lot of junkets. They get a lot of selfies and that with celebrities and politicians and the rest of it. And the other part, as far as I can see, is there to provide a political platform for the National Party and the Liberal Party at the expense of the people they're supposed to be representing. That's my take on the whole thing. That's my take on it. So as I said, these are my opinions, but they're very well educated opinions. And if anything I'm saying, David Johinke or Tony Marr don't think what I'm saying is correct, I'm more than happy to debate you in the public arena. Matter of fact, I'm more than happy for Bilbo Battalion to do an interview with you, or you do an interview with me. I'm open for that. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's see what you got. So, it boils down to, on last Tuesday, like I've known a lot of these people, a lot of the farmer representative lobby groups, or supposedly, and a lot of the politicians for many years. And it's amazing how, many of them are all, quite professional and reasonably pleasant, and come up and say good day, shake hands, old Bridget there, she's a National Party senator. Bridget McKenzie, she's always smiles and comes and gives you a hug and how you going, Wade, how you going? No longer any of the case. David Johinke just walks straight past you, right past your face, doesn't say good day, doesn't shake hands, nor didn't the other day. Bridget McKenzie, a lot of the politicians I know David Littleproud, Sam Birrell, the National Party federal member for Nichols here in north central Victoria. Interesting that, you know, we've done a few lives from Sam's office now, and we've tried to organise a meeting to speak with him and to do an interview. Amazing how Sam Birrell just walks straight past, doesn't look sideways, nor does the woman who works in his office, who we spoke to about an appointment. So what a funny thing. But I must say, this proves something, that for them to be so narky, and I haven't even spoken yet about one of the organisers of the Keep the Sheep from Western Australia, one of the organisers we spoke to there, a bloke called Paul. Yeah, not a friendly character at all. So all these things here I find quite interesting, and I think in fact that it is an indicator that we're having an impact, that Billboard Battalion is having an impact, because we're getting more and more farmers now are starting to come on board with what we are saying and starting to ask questions and support what we're doing, because we're giving them the real information, the true information, the things that are set up to destroy them, to wipe them out. And we hear a number of people say, oh look, we're doing all right, we're in crop and we're going quite well, we're making good money. But the problem is that the number of farmers around is getting smaller and smaller, because more and more of them are sent broke by government deliberately. That's the issue. And the ones that are left, the media focus on and the politicians focus on, and they get them up there telling everybody how good they're going and all that. Well, the facts are that the government policies are designed to wipe you out, and it's going to work unless you do something about it. And on that note, I'd ask the National Farmers Federation or the politicians who were there on Tuesday, or any of the state bodies or any of the rest of them, have you told our farmers about the policies and about the treaties and agreements that are specifically set up to wipe them out? Why don't you tell them what's going on? Why the silence? You tell them you're fighting for them. Well, why the hell aren't you telling them what's going on? Have you told them, of course, that international treaties that Australia signed up to in the 70s, that is why they are being sent broke? And I might also mention that when we were dealing with the North-South pipeline here in Victoria, now I got a lot of calls from people who were union members, AMWU union members. We're talking now with union members in construction and everything else, you know, and the food industry has been crashed. The Labor Party's crashed it, and have the Greens, the Nationals and the Liberals. They've all been a part of crashing the food industry. And we had many Labor supporters in the union members who said to me, if they take the farmers' water off them and the farmers go broke, then where do we get our jobs? How do we feed our families? We work for, in many cases, the food processing factories, and they don't get their jobs. They're done. It's over. And now we've seen many of the milk factories and the cheese factories have been shut down, exactly like we said it was going to, and those union members no longer have a job. And when I spoke to some of the bosses of the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union in Melbourne, in Carlton, they couldn't care less. They did nothing to help fight for their not farmers, for their union members, their workers. In fact, they were tied by the neck to the Labor Party in Victoria, to John Brumby at the time, and they were happy to sacrifice their union members for their political connections. So when we talk about the farmers being thrown under the bus by the likes of the National Farmers Federation, union workers are also thrown under the bus by their union representatives and the actual trade union organisations, because they want to be politicians, because they want to kiss the backsides of the Labor Party, and to do that they've got to throw union workers to the dogs, throw them to the sharks. Exactly the same deal. So the left or right doesn't matter. You know, we need to keep the jobs and businesses open for Australians. That's what we're about. And you know, we heard the other day from representatives of the irrigation councils, or if that's what you want to call it. You know, we heard from representatives from the National Irrigators Council, and I'm just wondering why they were even there. Because when the fight was on for the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, where was the National Irrigators Council? I'll tell you. They were trying to kiss the backsides of the politicians and help sell the Murray-Darling Basin Plan that was destroying irrigators. There were different options where us as farmers should have all come together and fought a tough fight for this. But they didn't. Under the leadership of these groups, they failed. In fact, they shut down any decent fight. The National Irrigators Council, in my opinion, is a joke. But a joke's supposed to be a bit funny. Well, these people, in my opinion, are not funny. They were part of throwing the irrigators under the bus. In fact, they argued against what I was running at the time, Southern Basin Communities. And I think if we look into the connections of the leadership of the National Irrigators Council, we start to see a bit of a problem happening. Exactly the same as the NFF. The whole thing, in my opinion, is as corrupt, is as bogus, and is garbage as possible. So, as I said before, our problems are coming from policies and treaties and agreements that the government signed up to 50 years ago to destroy Australian agriculture and Australian businesses and Australian manufacturing, our engineering works, all the stuff that we used to build here. It's all gone, and they are deliberately destroying that. We see the policies of open free trade. Are you kidding me? Are you nuts? Are you crazy? I can remember when they first were doing this. We've got to pull down the tariffs, they said, because we only represent 2% of the world market in agriculture, and if we don't pull down the tariffs, they won't buy stuff off us. Well, what the result of that is we've seen huge numbers wiped out anyhow. And the other thing that we were told and lied to, and I'm saying this because the next thing I'm going to say about the carbon, this rubbish, right? We were told about how Australian farmers need to be clean and green. What a great idea. Massive expense, huge amounts of quality assurance and accountability and all the rest of this crap. Not saying that, you know, being clean and green is not a good thing. But here's the problem. We were told that because we are so clean and green and we've got such a great product and we have such traceability and accountability, that will open up international markets that others can't get. And that'll be great for Australian farmers. So let's have a look at where that ended up. Where that's ended up is this. Australian farmers now, many of them have been sent broke, trying to conform to all this stuff, because the government has allowed imports of Australian food that competes against Australian producers, when the other imports don't have to conform to the same standards, the same strict standards, the same cost regimes, and the same wages and costs to pay workers overseas, foreign workers, where we have to conform to such a massive industrial regulations, in terms of wages and conditions and all the rest of it, and our competitors don't have to. Our competitors can export very, very cheap, very low class and shocking grade food into Australia, and the government allows this. So therefore us being clean and green, growing the best of the best, is a complete waste of time, in terms of we can't compete against the cheap foreign imports, the sort of food that's grown in really shocking conditions, where their workers in many cases are slave labour, and you eat the food as sort of glow in the dark stuff. So therefore we've been lied to, set up and stitched up. So where are our farmer representative groups saying anything at all about that? Don't know. Nothing. And that brings me to the next problem we've got. And I'll say from the outset, let's talk about climate change for a second. We hear the government tell us that Australia's farmers' biggest problem, biggest threat, is climate change. Well, the hell it is. Climate change is bogus garbage. It doesn't exist. It's a ploy to destroy our farmers. And I'll tell you what is our biggest threat to farmers, is politicians. That is our biggest threat to farmers, because our politicians work for foreign hostile entities that want our farmers gone. And one of our biggest threat to farmers are our so-called farmer representative lobby groups, who take money to represent us and sell us out. Because I'll guarantee you won't hear one other of those people talking like I do. None. I suggest to you that they all like their junkets, they all think they're a little bit good, and in most cases they all think they're financially secure. That's why they get people like that to lead these organisations, because they don't feel the pain of trying to survive. They're already doing quite well, thank you. And I would put that across so many of the farmer representative lobby groups. So this is a big part of the problem that we face. And I want to have a look at some of the things that we were told by the Liberals and Nationals on Tuesday. Because we saw a massive big stage set up, something big enough to host a Jimmy Barnes concert. Some small choir. The whole joint was packed full of politicians who were holding up their placards and telling us lies. And I'd start with, of course, our old mate Peter Dutton. And Peter Dutton, in part, and I for one would not vote for Peter Dutton in a pink fit. I've seen other things that he's been involved in. For me, he has no integrity. He's not a man of honour. He's a man of deception, a coward and weak. Peter Dutton doesn't even have the decency in him to say sorry to somebody. Not at all. Peter Dutton would rather use federal police and a small handful of Queensland police to shield him from having to ask questions, answer questions, or from anybody being able to ask him a question. He would much rather have tailor-made questions like the ones he was fed on Tuesday. So he's too weak, too gutless, too coward, and you wouldn't want someone like that to be supposedly running the country, which they don't do anyhow. But let's look at one thing that Peter Dutton said that I just shook my head when he was talking. And I thought, he said, you know, oh, he has our backs. Well, isn't that fantastic? Peter Dutton has our backs. What he actually meant to say, I think he must have tripped or slipped or something. What he actually meant to say is he's sticking the knives in our backs. But as is the whole lot of them. Dutton, Albanese, the Slimy Greens, and the Nationals. You got to be kidding me. We heard David Littleproud say about standing on his record. So David Littleproud, what did you do in the water stuff, David? You know, the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. You made a big noise about that. Let's sit down, David, on camera, and you and I'll have a little chat about what you did on the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. You sold us out. You are a liar. You are weak, and you're in the business of working for the multinationals to get rid of Australian farmers. That's what you are. And as I said, I'm quite happy to sit down and do an interview with you, put it on one of your mainstream media television networks. I don't care. Do it on radio, do it or whatever you want. Get the ABC out there. The ABC, oh my God. Anyway, there are a number of the networks there. You organise it. We'll do it. You live stream it or you broadcast it live. I don't care. Channel 7, 9, 10, they're all as bad as one another. But let's get it out there. If anything you think that I'm saying is wrong, then I'm happy to take you on and debate the issue. Because why would I do this? Why would I put my time and effort into this? Because we are seeing good Australian family farmers being destroyed. And it's all part of an overall global big picture plan. And you know that. As does Dutton, as does Slimy Albanese, all these other parasites, the Greens, they all know this. They know it damn well. And I put it to you that the likes of David Johinke knows a bit about it because I've personally told him. And I put it to you that given how much they try and fight against what we're doing, a lot of the others know about it as well. So therefore, for my opinion about the rally, I think it was a fizzer. The rally in Canberra, put on by, and I might say hijacked by the National Farmers Federation and the Liberal Party and the Nationals, had nothing to do with sheep. It was all about a propaganda exercise for those two parties and for the NFF. Because when I listened to all of David Johinke's speeches, I got nothing. There's nothing in there. He said, in part, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, the government needs to listen to us, needs to listen to the farmers. Well, here's two things, David. The governments, whichever ones they are, have got no intentions in the world of listening to anything that you have to say. None. They are listening to foreign multinational corporates and foreign hostile governments. That's who they're listening to. That's who they are signed up to. So stop saying pointless, useless, garbage rhetoric. That is, it's got nothing. There's no firepower there at all. It's weak, it's pathetic. And if we want the governments to listen to us, to farmers, then we've got to do a hell of a lot more to force that issue. We have the capacity to do that. If we can bring all our farmers, or the vast majority of them, together on the one page, but it must be the right page, and they're prepared to back what Bill Battalion wants to do, because we are the primary agricultural lobby group in Australia by a million miles. If we can pull all the farmers together and inform them properly about what's happening and pool those resources as the agricultural sector, if we fought as one, we can fix this in a very short period of time. But David, honestly, we don't need people like you. We don't need people like the National Farmers Federation. The board of that, my opinion, is a joke. I wonder if they could even organise who's going to mow the grass at the local tennis club on a Saturday morning. Because for my information, or my opinion, they have no capacity to do what they're supposed to be doing. None. We need to get rid of them. Get decent people in there. People who will fight. People who have been in the trenches, and the people who have already proven that they've got the guts and the integrity to actually fight, not just suck the guts out of the money and make believe they're having a go. The people who will actually call out these maggoty politicians. Now, I understand you've got to be in proximity, and you've got to be professional, and taking photos with them and all that's part of the deal. But if they're going to smash you, then you've got to actually start to fight. And I know the old term, that we hear quite often from a lot of these just non-thinking people. You have to be in the tent. There's no point getting stuck into the politicians of being outside the tent. Because if you're outside the tent, you don't have any opportunity to have an impact on policy. Well, here's a tip. If every time you go inside the tent, you lose another limb, then you've got to do something different. Because you're just kissing backsides and getting used and abused and selling out the membership who you're supposed to represent. And I've heard this crap for so long. One of the main people who used to tell us this garbage was Richard Anderson. Now, Richard Anderson at the time was the chairman of the Victorian Farmers Federation so-called Water Council. And Richard Anderson, in my opinion, was one of the greatest sellouts that we've seen. Richard Anderson wouldn't know how to fight for our members if his life depended on it. In fact, I saw them get on board with policies that wiped out huge numbers of irrigation farmers. Massive amounts of irrigation farmers were wiped out. And Richard Anderson was a very serious part of that. And once again, if Richard Anderson thinks what I'm saying is wrong, Richard comes from North Central Victoria here. He was on the VFF Water Council. I'm happy to debate you as well, Richard. Matter of fact, all of you together, I don't care. You, David, get the politicians, a whole lot. Let's sit down and have a go at it. And let the people see the truth. Who's telling the truth? And let the people see how they've been sold out. Because they've been sold out. It's that simple. So, I wanted to have a look at a lot of the things that are happening now around the country. We're seeing farmers protesting all over the place. As I said, because of all this renewable energy garbage, because of these banning the sheep. And I can tell you right now, they'll be back to ban cattle. That's in the pipeline. Matter of fact, they'll be back to ban cropping. They'll be back to ban dairy, horticulture, vegetable growers, the whole lot. And we've got some people who might sit there and go, oh, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. Well, I'm here to tell you, that's exactly what they're doing. And the reason you don't understand that is because nobody's bothered to tell you this. And you haven't bothered to look. So, why are we seeing all these farmer protests? In fact, all over the world. The reason that's happening is because the things that have been set up now for the last 100 years, and in particular the last 50, the things that are happening now are a result of that being set up for the last half a century. That's when we should have been fighting against it. But we weren't. And why weren't we? Because the very government politicians who were signing us up to these disasters were sitting there saying, oh, it's just all conspiracy theories. It's just all rubbish. These people are nutters. Look, that's all wrong. We wouldn't do something like that. And then that goes down to the leadership group of the farmers or the unions or whoever who go and rub shoulders with all these politicians. They love to be able to drop their names. They love to be able to tell everybody how, oh, they're going out to dinner with this politician, or they know someone in the Liberal Party, or the whatever. They're sucked in. They become the ball carriers for the politicians, who are the ball carriers for our enemies. And then that goes downhill. And that's how that works. And as I continually say, our politicians are the ones who are signing the legislation. They vote for the legislation to destroy us. That's happening. It has been for a long time, and the people have not responded. We get far too many people who say, oh, look, Wade, I'm not interested in politics. I couldn't care less about politics. I've got too much work to do. I don't have time. And all this kind of stuff. Really? Well, here's the deal. You might not be interested in politics, but politics is very, very interested in you. And if you don't want to know about it, then that is why you're getting smashed. That is why the things that are happening now have been happening for a long time, and they've almost got it over the line because you didn't want to know about it. Well, we're seeing a lot of protests now. We're seeing a lot of things happening. We're seeing the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. We saw protests back then through the mid 2000s right up to now, and we're seeing the government coming back to take more water. And we see the Nationals and the Liberals say, oh, they won't support that. Yes, they already have, because they are the ones who have supported the policies that have seen us be destroyed. In fact, they're the ones who in many cases have signed us up to it. So you're being played, lied to and conned. And the one thing we need to understand, there's always somebody who wants to take off you what you have. Well, they're very clever in how they do that now. And we've seen things, and I continually talk about the big picture. We're seeing things that are going to affect our farmers in their lives that are being done at many levels and from different directions. And I'll bet you're not being told about that either. So, you know, we're seeing people carrying on about a lot of the renewable energy that's being put on their properties. And yes, I agree, it shouldn't be. But that's, in many cases, the least of our worries. But let's just look at that for a minute. I talked about things that have been set up for 50 years, and people have not responded. They haven't taken any notice. They didn't want to know about it. This is politics. Why you're in trouble, the live sheep bans, it's politics. All the power infrastructure coming onto your place, all the markets we've lost, all the farmers we've lost, it's politics. Every bit of it. It's the most important part of your business. So if we look at the electricity system, we saw in Victoria here, the early to mid 1990s, they started selling off the power stations and the SEC. And what was their excuse? Oh, well, look, the old coal-fired power stations haven't had investment in them for a long, long time. This is why the government owned them. And now they're so decrepit, it costs so much to fix it, so we're going to sell them to private enterprise. And how's that worked out? Shocking. So what should have happened is we should have kept them. The government should have brought them up to speed, kept Victoria online with baseload power. But that was all part of this plan, this strategy to destroy our electricity supply. These are the facts. And they did that while most of us were sleeping. Not all of us, but the majority of people. So now all the stuff that's happening with the rollout of electricity, the renewables, we knew this was happening, but many people didn't want to know about it because it's politics. It was in the paperwork, it's in the documentation, it's in the strategies, it's there for you to look at, but your politicians who signed up to it wouldn't tell you. In fact, the people who tried to tell you were called conspiracy theorists and others. So I had a bit of a, I suppose, a straw poll of many of the people who were at the national ag, I don't think you'd call it a national something, because, you know, at the very most, a rough count for me, there's about 2,000 people there. That's my call. Some of them said only hundreds, and maybe a couple said 1,000, but I reckon 2,000 to be fair. And once again, for a country of well in excess of 20 million people, and how many farmers we have, that was a disgrace. The place should have been overrun. And I know, I spoke to Paul Brown, one of the organisers, as I understand, from Western Australia, who said, oh, you know, where's the effective? I won't hear, you know, well, we've got 5,000 people there, which, yeah, no, there weren't. But I won't hear, you know, that this was a very unattended or not well represented, I just forget the words he actually said. Something along those lines. Because he said, oh, you know, there's a lot of people online who are watching this and supporting and whatever. then if that's the case, Paul, why have a rally at Canberra at Parliament House? What's the point? No, mate, it was a fizzer. We saw some really terrific people turn up to be there and support it, but in real terms, for a national ag rally in a country in excess of 20 million people, she was a fizzer. And why is that? And I can tell you, mate, whether you like it or not, I really couldn't give a rat's. The deal is this. So many people over the years have been to rallies where they're fronted up, the Nats and the Libs have stood there, the farmer representative lobby groups have stood there, they've made their crap speeches, they've filled them up with pointless garbage instead of actually having any hard-hitting anything. So people just don't care anymore. They don't go to these things because they know it's pointless. So I'd say, Paul, you and the committee who are the Keep the Sheep, great idea, but you need to come up to speed, mate. This is my opinion. You need to come up to speed. There's so many people around Australia who are protesting about all sorts of things. You need to come up to speed. Because if you keep doing things in isolation, doing the wrong thing, we are going to lose. And no more better example exists than the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. When so many of the people who were protesting and whatever would not listen. Well, how'd that work out for us? We got smashed. They handed us our backsides on a plate to such a degree that they got everything they wanted, and now they're coming back for more. So when we hear the National Irrigators Council stand up there, or New South Wales Irrigators Council, or Little Proud, or anybody talk about water, just don't. Because when that fight was there to be had, you were weak, you were pathetic, you sold us out. That's why we got smashed. That's why they're coming back for more, because they know there is no resistance, there is no fight, there's no organisation, there's no power, there's no anything. And when you work in isolation and you try and create friction between everybody, and that's what happens, because that's the politician's specialty, is to make people fight against each other. That is the reason why we get smashed. That's why ag is going down. And I can tell you right now, the things that we were talking about to farmers up at Beef Week in Rockhampton earlier on this year, the beef producers up there, about this stuff is ringing more and more true by the second. We're seeing that policies are being brought in, and I go back to what we said about, oh, you've got to be clean and green, you'll get great markets. That was crap, because they undercut our markets. And now what we're seeing is the whole new thing with this net zero carbon crap, and all this BS about you've got to have accreditation. You know, our customers want to see people who are doing clean and green stuff, and they're doing the carbon reduction. That's all garbage. What that is, that's another round where we see farmers have to subscribe to overburdening red tape, green tape, whatever tape you want to call it, but bookwork, record keeping, and then more and more restrictions, more and more compliance. That is a crash and burn scenario. We're getting sucked into that by so many people, by our governments. I've seen an abattoirs here in Tongala. I spoke to some of the people from there, I believe they're from there, when we're up at Beef Week in Rockhampton, and they're selling this crap. They're selling, oh, you know, the customers want to know that we're clean, that we're being carbon and environmentally responsible. No, take that and shove it, right? Because as we've seen with many other things, you will not be able to comply with this. They will keep stacking it up harder and harder, shifting the goalposts, making you unviable. This is what's going to happen. So as a farming industry and as the Australian people, we need to tell them, you take your Paris targets, you take your carbon stuff and you go and shove it right up your backside. Because this is part of a plan to destroy Australian industry and business and farming and agriculture. This is what it is. This is what I talk about when I talk about the big picture stuff. That these lot do not tell our farmers. They don't tell them. They keep them in the dark, treat them like mushrooms. And everyone knows what that means. And that is literally how they treat them. They don't tell you about the big picture issues. They don't tell you about the likes of the Great Reset, of the 17 Sustainable Goals, about the Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030. That's about destroying farming and communities. It's about wiping out industry and business. It's about wiping out you and your families. So there's so many aspects to this. But are your politicians telling you? No. Are your farmer representatives telling you? No. Are your union representatives telling you? Hell no. Why the hell not? Why aren't they? So I can tell you right now, this is a battle for Australia. This is a battle for our people, for our livelihood, our futures. This is a battle for Australian farmers. And we have a very, very small window of opportunity left to fix this. Because we are at the 59th minute of the 11th hour. All the stuff that we've seen go through with regard to the digital identification, this is catastrophic. And I've spoken to a number of farmers who just can't seem to make the connection. But more and more of them are starting to switch on. We're presenting things to them in a way that they understand how it all fits together. And I've spoken to some very, very big beef producers. And they just can't get their head around it. These are people who are very successful, or they used to be. They're about to be not successful and they don't realise this yet. And I'd look at all the beef producers organisations in Australia, talk to me, find out what's going on, get behind what we're doing, support it, throw in, because you're about to be non-existent. And I've spoken to people who've got millions and millions of dollars in the bank. Could write a cheque out for 10 million bucks. And they can't seem to get their head around the fact that they're about to be wiped out. Because when government policy strikes you, it's over. You're finished. You can't fight it then. It's too late. And we just have to look at how they shut down the beef export trade out of the top end, 2011. Shut it down overnight. And the consequences of that are still reverberating. Many people went broke. And I do notice that's one of the things that National Farmers Federation are going crook about. So that's what, 13 years ago? 13 years ago? What? And you're still going crook because you haven't had the compensation, hasn't been finalised? Shows you how effective or non-effective the National Farmers Federation is. That's how much the politicians listen to you. Any compensation package they pay out, they blow, I don't know how much, 1,000 times as much as that on their climate change crap every year. They're not listening to you because they have no intentions of listening to you, because they don't have to. You don't put any pressure on them. So this is about the size of it. So I say to people, Billboard Battalion is the only lobby group in Australia who is telling you this stuff. We are the only people calling out these flea-bitten, maggoty politicians because they are wiping you out. I remember we had a policy put up at the Victorian Farmers Federation about the VFF should support superannuation companies investing in Australian agriculture. What the hell would you do that for? Why would you want multinational billion-dollar corporations to compete against young Australian farmers for land and farming opportunities? What the hell is with that? Now, I voted against that, but can you believe it passed? Are you nuts? And part of the reason is because a lot of the decent farmers who were members of the VFF have left. They're all gone. But I put it to, I think Peter Toohey was the president at the time going out, and he was the one who put that motion up, that resolution up. And I said to Peter, what the hell are you talking about? How are our young Australian people going to get into agriculture? And Peter's response, if memory serves me correctly, was, oh well, you know, they're not going to be able to, you know, but they can aspire to work for the multinational corporates. Are you nuts? This is where this is going. These are many of the reasons why I do what I do and I say what I say, and why Billboard Battalion will take this stuff on, and we will fight for our country. We'll fight for our farmers. We'll fight for our communities, our farm, our kids, our families, the whole deal. That's why we're the only ones doing this. So we can't be corrupted. We can't be bought off. We can't be sold out. We won't be intimidated, pressured. We'll take you on. Anybody I've talked about today, you want to meet me in the public arena, let's do it. Put the whole lot of you together and I'll take the whole lot of you on. I don't care. Because we're coming from a place of righteousness and truth and honesty. And we are fighting for our farmers. We're even fighting for our union workers. We're fighting for our Australian people. So therefore, this is what I've had to say about the so-called National Farmers Rally in Canberra. And I asked a lot of people there on the day, what did you get from it? And people just shook their head and said, oh, well, nothing really. They held up signs that said, no farmers, no food. Well, hello, really? That's it? I think the Nationals had signs that said, the Nationals supporting Aussie farmers. Really? Is that it? Get the hell out. If you're not going to do the job, get the hell out of the road and let someone in there who will. Somebody who's not corrupt. Somebody who's not treating the Australian people like fools and just sucking the money out of them and living on junkets all the time and providing nothing, in fact, actually doing more damage than good. That's the deal. So what I would say is this. The National Farmers Ag Rally was a dismal fizzer. You have achieved nothing because the politicians there intend to achieve nothing. They use you and abuse you. And if they don't take the sheep, if for some miraculous thing they get it turned around, at the minute, they'll be back. And they're hitting you 100 different ways. So we need to get together. The farmers in Australia need to get together. The community needs to get together. Our union workers, our people in the cities. I know plenty of people in the cities who support our farmers because we present in the cities as well as country areas. And if they know what's happening, they will come on board. They support our farmers. But they don't know because the people who are supposed to be informing them are not. And when we talk about our fleabag media, I must say that on the day last Tuesday in Canberra, we met up with a bloke who I've known, for quite a long time now, who's actually a reporter for the ABC. Now I know, just don't say that stuff. It's not nice. I know it's not interactive, but I can imagine what you're saying. So the ABC country area in Victoria is run by a bloke called Warwick Long, and I've known Warwick for a fair while, and in the past he's done a great job. But I spoke to Warwick, and I'm not sure he was that stoked to see me there. I said to him a few things, and anyway, I said to Warwick, we're happy to do an interview if you'd like. Oh, well, we don't have time, and we're doing this, and I've got other things, and blah, blah, blah. So I said to him, well, Warwick, what about Farmer Wade, Billboard Battalion, interviews you as an ABC journalist? And I'm not sure poor old Warwick's ever had that question put to him before. Anyway, his response was words to the effect of, we're not authorised to do that. We're not allowed to do interviews with people without permission and from whatever. Really? Aren't you the Australian Broadcasting Corporation? You've been doing this a long time. Surely you can handle yourself and ask a few questions, Warwick. Or is it the fact that the ABC is into censorship, shutting things down, telling lies, pushing the climate change lies? Is that the problem? Why don't our journalists want to talk to Farmer Wade, a Billboard Battalion? Why don't they want to do an on-camera interview? Bit of a question, and we'll be looking at this a lot harder in the very near future. But our mainstream media are selling us out. They are liars. We found this a lot with the freedom movements since 2020. And I mean, it's even more scary when a lot of our farmers have never even heard of the freedom movement. Don't know what you're talking about. So, we have a big problem. Media, politicians, representative lobby groups. So I'd say this. We've been doing a lot. I've been doing a lot since 1985. We've been pushing agricultural politics and fighting for Australian farmers since that time. We lay it on the line. We dedicate our life now to doing this because we know how much danger Australia is in. This is a battle for Australia right now. And many of the things that I haven't talked about today because there's not time at the minute, and the things that your groups won't tell you, your representatives won't tell you, and your politicians won't tell you. They are coming for you. Now you be ignorant if you want. You don't want to know if you want. You rather listen to your politicians and these other lot as much as you want. But it will cost you. It will cost you everything because that's where this is going. So I'll wrap up at the minute and I'll just say Billboard Battalion is in the fight for you and your families and our country. It's in the fight for agriculture. We will be going further around Australia and talking and doing what we can to pull farmers together and inform our communities, our agricultural communities. Everybody. We'll be trying to talk to as many people as we can, and including union people. We're already talking to union people. It's time to start presenting in those areas, bringing them up to speed, and take on the union leadership, because they're in the business of wiping out Australia. So I'll just say Billboard Battalion does as much as we can. We're wanted all over Australia. We do as much as we can based on whatever funding we have. And we need funding to keep going with what we're doing. If anything that you've heard here today you think resonates, or you think, well, Billboard Battalion is having a crack, they're actually working for us, I would say this to you. For people who are in the unions, why are you paying union fees? They're selling you out. Pay the money to Billboard Battalion. Help us, because we'll fight. The people who are paying money to a lot of these farmer organisations and all the rest of it, why are you paying money to the people who are selling you out? Give it to Billboard Battalion. We need the money to continue what we're doing because we're the only ones actually fighting for you and your family and your kids. Quite literally. So, if you think what we're doing is okay, then get on to billboardbattalion.com or our Facebook page. Give us a hand. Give some donations to BB. Become a financial member. Be happy to sponsor Billboard Battalion. Get other people to do any of that, because we need funding to keep going. Now, we pretty well do this for nothing, for the simple reason that we recognise Australia is in absolute catastrophic trouble, and we're happy to put in the time. I'd much rather be sitting on a tractor, thanks very much. But this is real, this is dangerous, this is so serious. So if you care about your country or your kids or your family or your future, give us a hand. Get with the Billboard Battalion Army. Get with the program. come on board and let's do this. We are the only ones who are having a red hot crack. And we can do this if we come together. That's the most important message. If we come together, join forces, get educated, understand what's what, then we can do this. I'll leave it at that. Wade Northhausen here for Billboard Battalion. Today is Thursday, the 12th of September 2024. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for sharing. Thanks everybody for getting on and following Billboard Battalion. We're always open to new members. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share this around everywhere. And let's keep up the fight and see if we can change